We tried to conduct ourselves with humanity. And for many times we did ceasefire. And what it did is give them more time to arm themselves and to have more power to bomb us again and again.
Adi, and I mean, is as much detail or not as you want, can you just explain to the people listening what happened to you on October the 7th?
Thank you for having me here. I woke up to a loud sound of bombing with no sirens. I went to my safe room, closed the doors and the windows, and checked for news. And then I was swamped with all the WhatsApp messages about terrorists in our kibbutz, killing people, entering their safe rooms and taking them hostage, and people being butchered in their homes where they should feel most safe. After hours and hours of that, I've learned that my husband's house is being set on fire by the terrorists. And after 7 hours of messages like that from all over the kibbutz and many other kibbutzes in my area, terrorists entered my house, entered my safe room, and took me hostage with them. After they told me they finished their business and they only want cars to go back to to Gaza, I guess. And they forced me to go outside with them and show them where the kibbutz's cars are. And I had to lead them there. They were armed, of course. And when they heard gunshots, they forced me to run with them to another house where there were other hostages, a 97-year-old woman and her caregiver. The caregiver was handcuffed, and they handcuffed me immediately from behind. And there I sat with them for a few minutes. After that, I heard the boy crying very loud. And a terrorist brought that boy, grabbing him by the hand very forcefully. And he just tossed him to the ground beside us. And the boy was crying for his father. And he shouted so loud and he was so scared. And then after a while, they brought another terrorist came by, bringing a woman wounded and her other son, about 7 or 8 years old. And he was wounded as well from shrapnel on his face. The woman had a gunshot wound to her abdomen and shrapnels to her hand. And she was trembling, and she had trouble breathing and trouble walking. Immediately she told me, they shot my husband and Mila is dead. I didn't know Mila, so I asked her, and she told me that Mila is her baby. I tried to remain hope and to ask her who maybe she's wounded. She told me they shot her by the head. And I looked for ways to comfort her, and I didn't have my arms to hug her. So we cried together, and the boy is asking his mother, "Mom, what are they gonna do to us?" And she told him straight out, "They're gonna kill us." And she actually believed that. I tried to tell him, we don't know. I spoke to him in Hebrew. We don't know, and I think they don't know either. After a while, one of them decided he had a job for me, and he told me, "You should know, if you do what we ask you to do, you're going to be okay." This family, they did not listen to us, and they tried to run away, and that's why we shot them. So he asked me to be a human shield for them, and he asked me to bring his dead friends out of a car for him. He didn't care when I asked him to shout out to them because he said he's not sure they're dead. And I was afraid for my life because if they're only wounded, they might shoot me. And he didn't care and he let me go there. I tried to remember how to say in Arabic, I'm here to help you. And then after a few steps, we heard gunshots. So they forced me to run with them again to another house. At that house, there were many of them. It was a strategic point of the kibbutz. And I guess they were fighting from there for a few hours.
And how many were there? Because it's difficult for us to get any eyewitness accounts of how many terrorists there were and how they were operating.
At the first house where I was held hostage, there were 3 of them, fighters, very professionals. And then another 2 came, so that's 5. And at the other house where we came after that, running after the shots, there were about 10 or 15. And it looked so many. And there were many rifles there and RPG. And immediately they fought very hard with the IDF soldiers. And they actually allowed me to hide in a storage room from where they conducted the fighting. And there I was trying to protect myself from the shrapnels on my body. And I saw many of them fighting. It was going along for about 15 or 20 minutes. And they retreated during the fighting, still shooting, retreating and shooting towards the house. The house was burning, actually. And I was thinking about the people in that house. Where are they? And I started hearing Hebrew, and I tried to call out for the soldiers because I was afraid to be shot by the soldiers as well if I move. So that was the safe way to let myself be known. And the shooting started immediately from both sides. And then after a few minutes, I heard Hebrew closer. And 2 IDF teams came along, and I let myself known again. And they sent a unit to clear the house. And they tried to move with me. They told me, you're safe, you're with us. And they tried to continue towards the neighborhood where my husband lives. And I know in this neighborhood, many houses since the early hours of the morning were burned. And they tried to get there, but they didn't succeed. The fighting was very heavy. They had to retreat and to stay in this yard in front of the house for another hour and a half. And actually 4 of them were wounded in front of my eyes. And actually when we tried to move at the beginning and to proceed, when we heard gunshots, we had to crouch to the ground. And from that angle, I could see a woman, dead woman. I could see her body. She was face down on the ground. And she was handcuffed from behind, just the way I was minutes before. And I saw a man beside a burning car. Also, the position didn't look like he was alive, and he looked like a civilian. And then we stayed there for another hour and a half till one team had to evacuate the wounded soldiers, and they evacuated me with them under fire to the entrance of the kibbutz. All the time, I know that my husband is still there in a burning house, and my daughter is in her house in the safe room waiting for someone to save her.
How long before you got news of the rest of your family and that you were all reunited?
Many hours. My daughter got rescued at about midnight. And it was chaos. I could see I was outside of the kibbutz with IDF soldiers and officers trying to let them know the whereabouts of my daughter and my husband. And they tried to listen, but they said the fighting is very heavy. And we're trying to get people out, but we're trying to do it systematically. And after a while, they were trying to figure out where are the wounded people and to evacuate them first. And when I saw people that I recognized that are neighbors with my daughter, I managed to give them my daughter's the number of her house.
Yeah.
And then, so she was evacuated about midnight. And I started seeing people from my husband's neighborhood, all covered in smoke, all sweaty from the heat. And I understood that there's hope because we lost contact with my husband since 4 afternoon.
Yeah.
And I told an officer my husband's house number, and he was evacuated at 2 a.m. Sunday morning. But I couldn't wait for him, actually, because at the assembly point, at the entrance for the kibbutz, where there were hundreds of people after being evacuated and waiting for the buses to take us to a nearby city. Actually, there were terrorists, and they came and shooting at us. So they had to evacuate everybody very quickly on trucks.
I mean, the whole experience is just, it's unbelievable because it went on for so long and you must have felt very close to death at many, many points. But you're here, you survived. When you hear the stories of what happened to other people, and presumably some of these people were known to you or your family, what kind of goes through your mind all these weeks on? I mean, I know it must feel still very recent to you, but what are your thoughts on what happened on that day now?
Well, yes, I know all of them. We are a very close community. I know all of them from all cycles of life. Their sons, their daughters, their grandmothers, from the kibbutz. And it feels terrible because in any other situation, if someone that you know very from afar, like from the bakery, gets murdered, and you hold your head and you say, oh my God, someone murdered him. And it happened 100 times more for us, all in the same day. It's devastating, and I can't believe evil and cruelty could be at such large proportions that they could come to our houses, to our homes, a place where you should feel most safe. And when you want to teach your sons and daughters how to be safe, you say stay home at night, or don't go to that street in the dark, or don't talk to strangers, don't open the door. And we had them coming, breaking our doors and trying to butcher us. So it's unbelievable that there's even one person in the world that can think that this could be justified. And I can't believe that people think that this is a fight. I don't know. I feel that for the last 15, 20 years, we've been bombed on our cities and on our kibbutzes. And we still try to believe in peace, and we still try to have talks with those people and their leaders. And I'm not ready to give up hope. But I think that anyone that is trying to judge us, there's a say in English, before judging a person, you should walk a mile in his shoes. So first, ask yourself, what would I do if someone bombed my neighborhood, bombed my house, bombed, I don't know, London, Manchester, Birmingham? What would we do? Before saying one word, what would we feel if someone came to our houses and butchered our kids?
And does that then mean that what has happened since the 7th of October in Gaza, as awful as it is for those people and, you know, newborn children, people who don't really have a stake in all of this, does that mean that you think that that is justified?
Are you asking if what Israel is doing in Gaza is justified? I think that Israel has shown for many years that we have morals, and sometimes we take responsibility for the people of Gaza much more than their leaders. And we have rules, for example, for how to retaliate in the demonstrations they did on the wall and on the fences. And they know our rules, and they know that the IDF soldiers only shoot beneath the knees. So they took their kids and they tied their kids to their legs while demonstrating. So we have shown our morals when we did the roof knocking, and when we send flyers before we bomb, and when we make phone calls before we bomb. And still we conduct our fighting with the same morals till this day. And we know, I've seen in the news that they have tunnels and they try to hide beneath civilian houses in their cities. So the ones that conduct without responsibility to civilians are them. But we need to take care of our own, and we need to know that our neighbors will never have a chance to do what they did to us ever again. Because our community, we want to go back to our land, we want to go back to our homes, and to be to have agriculture and to have culture and education, what life means. But we won't do that if we don't feel safe.
And when will you feel safe?
Actually, now it's hard to say, because it's not a question of when, it's a question of how. And the sense of being safe and secure is now shattered, because the state of Israel, they told us, if you hear sirens, run to the safe room. You have 15 seconds to get there. Stay there for 10 minutes. And then if you have no further instructions, you can go out and go along with your life. And now it doesn't stand anymore. So those people, I feel now that they lied. It's actually hard for me to say people. They're subhumans for me now. And they lied when they came to the negotiation table to talk about peace. And the only thing that they were true to is their declarations that they want to kill us. And they did it. And they still want to do that. They declare it again and again. So I don't know. It's going to take time to feel secure again. And it's going to take time for the state of Israel to earn our trust.
I just want to ask you one final thing. I mean, you're here in London. You will have seen, or you will have heard at the weekend, there was this huge demonstration. Some people say 300,000, some people say 800,000. Who knows? It was a lot of people who were protesting. They were pro-Palestinian. They want a ceasefire. They say they want to end genocide. They all say different things, but that is the kind of the main thrust, that they want there to be an end to the bombardment of Gaza. How do you feel about those kind of marches?
Sadly, many people don't know the facts. They don't bother to look at history. And they see people suffer, and then they ache. It's natural to ache for other people's suffering. But I think all humans have the same feelings, and we suffered for so long, and we tried to conduct ourselves with humanity. And for many times we did ceasefire. And what it did is give them more time to arm themselves and to have more power to bomb us again and again. So we tried peaceful ways for so many years, and it didn't work. And I don't have the answers what is going to help now. But our ache, Jewish ache and Israeli ache, and Israeli kids being butchered is the same. And we had that for so long. It's time to say no. It's time to say not again, no more. And it's time to understand that Israel is fighting the fight for the free world, because fundamentalism and terrorism is dangerous for everybody, not just for us. Terrorism is so hard to fight. Nobody knows how to do that. And I hope to God that we're not going to pay the price again, because sometimes other countries come to Israel to learn from our experience. So think about that now, before you come to us in 10 or 20 years, after we've paid the price again and again.
Okay. Adi, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.